Welcome to Dying in Grace, the program that explores all aspects of end-of-life care and death and dying, and has us talk and discuss that most taboo subject, death. We believe that the more we can speak about all aspects of end-of-life care and dying, the more comfortable and normal it will be. My name is Arlene Stepputat, and I will be your host for the program. If you want to learn more about me and my own experience with dying, you can go to our website at dyingingrace.com and read a little bit about my experience and watch a 3-minute video about my life. You can also go there to see other past shows. We invite you to tweet us at Twitter at Dying in Grace, and we have our own YouTube channel, Dying in Grace. Each week we bring an expert in our field, and this week I'm happy to share with you my friend William Peters. Hi William, thank you for coming.
Thank you.
William is a licensed psychotherapist in MFT, working at the Family Institute, but you have a unique relationship and a lot of expertise in death and dying. So tell us a little bit about who you are and how you got into this.
Yeah, you know, I look back at this like so many of us in end of life. You could never imagine that I'd end up here being studying what actually happens before death, during death, and soon after. But at 17 years old, I had a near-death experience. I'm just skiing down the mountain. I caught an edge and catapulted into the air, had a really hard landing, and found myself sailing away from my body into the now well-known experience of the light. That experience really altered me, but I didn't really talk about it for a number of years, but I was fixated on this, what happens around death and dying. So much so that some years later I found myself working at the Zen Hospice Project in San Francisco, and it was there that I was able to work with people, be with people as they were transitioning. And I remember an experience one afternoon just reading a story to a man who was very close to death. And during this simple reading, I found myself suspended above my body and his. And he was looking right at me, as you do in that dimension, acknowledging that we were there together, and he was quite smug about this, as if he had invited me into wherever he was headed. So this was an experience that reminded me of my near-death experience, so I really had a sense right away that this is a common path. And then I didn't even really, when I talked to the people that were our guides at the Zen Hospice Project, our supervisors and such, they didn't really have much to say about this experience. Actually, being of Buddhist orientation, they encouraged me to let it go, and so I did. And then, but I would have many more experiences like this in Zen Hospice. But I didn't really talk about it very much until I met Raymond Moody in 2009. And he was introducing the concept of the shared death experience. And
so, right, Raymond Moody, thank you for that. Raymond Moody, just for our viewers, this was many years ago, because he's, what year was that?
This would be 2009 when I first heard Raymond introduce the shared death experience. He's more well known for the near-death experience,
right,
which he wrote a Life After Life book,
and that was in the 80s,
1976.
Right. So that's really important, because people might know that name, Raymond Moody, and also the Zen Hospice. People might know it's in San Francisco, and it's a small place, not a hospital model at all, but a kind of a intimate caregiving, and I think that's important to a degree, because of the setting, although the phenomena that you're talking about, hospice workers have been experiencing, and people have been experiencing forever, but as you well said from your near-death experience at 17, nobody talked about it. We just kind of put it away. And Raymond Moody was one of many people on the forefront of bringing this out, and now you are on the forefront of bringing this awareness to us with your own program.
Yeah, thank you. Once I was affirmed by Dr. Raymond Moody's research that these shared crossing experiences, or he called them shared death experiences, were happening, I felt a real passion at that point to study these experiences, to learn how they happened. I must say, I felt right away that I had a sense for how they happened. It's like in these experiences, I felt like I was learning the landscape that goes from this human existence into whatever lies beyond here.
So I think we have a video of you addressing what the Shared Crossing Project is, and that will help our audience understand it. So can we play that video?
So the mission of the Shared Crossing Project is to raise awareness and educate people about the profound and healing experiences that are available for the dying and their loved ones at the end of life. Our culture has a resistance to end of life, and this makes sense because aging, decline, and death are very difficult and challenging for people depending on the circumstances. Our groups and programs at the Shared Crossing Project give people an opportunity to come together in a supportive environment to share their fears, their perspectives, and their experiences with the end of life. And what we find is this process of sharing and engaging with like-minded members from our community begins a process of transformation that shifts the fear and anxiety, resistance to end of life, into one of acceptance and appreciation.
I think this program really serves an essential need of many people.
I feel much better prepared now to share those experiences and to even answer questions about the process that happens at the end of life.
We feel that one relationship at a time, our community is being transformed from one of fear and resistance to end of life to one of acceptance, a noble surrender, and an appreciation for the great mystery of living and dying.
Well, that was quite an overview. Can you tell us a little bit more, things that weren't in the video that we should know?
You know, what we've been focused on since its inception, and even stronger now, is researching these shared crossings. And what we have found is that they exist, you know, well, I think at this time, let's put the spectrum up, because I think you have the...
Okay, so what you're talking about is that there's a whole range of people, of experiences people have with this spectrum. So can you talk to us a little bit about what's on the spectrum?
So the first element of the spectrum we found is this pre-death premonitions. So people will say as early as 2 years in advance of their own passing or that of a loved one that they seem to have a sense or a premonition that that they or a loved one is dying. And they often don't even realize this until they get a diagnosis or an accident happens. But that's the first one that we've identified. And this is well known, actually, in research now from Great Britain. The other real common phenomenon is these pre-death dreams and visions. Mm-hmm. And these are what can be really called visitations. It's as if the person is dying and they feel that they're visited by usually a deceased loved one who's there really to comfort them, to say everything's going to be okay. They may even come to say, you know, that we're waiting for you. Uh-huh. Very affirming. Then we also have just a series of pre-death synchronicities, you know, just things like things that happen that are signs that an event is coming. That might be lights flicker or
clock stops at the time as the person passes. That
all
type
that
of stuff.
synchronicities.
Phenomena. Yeah.
Phenomena that are kind of unexplainable,
right.
but get people's attention. And the last element actually before dying is what we call terminal surge. And that's this expression of vitality, luminosity almost before someone, just as someone's about to pass. We saw this with Stephen Jobs.
I was just thinking about that.
Yeah.
The oh wow, oh wow, oh wow.
Yeah. And this, you know, this is also recognized, an aspect of terminal surge is recognized in the medical profession as terminal lucidity. It's this physiologically unexplainable behaviors, like, you know, people who've been unresponsive, or even with Alzheimer's. They come to, they're bright, clear, and alert, and they're talking coherently to people in the room. And a lot of people would just observe this and say, oh my God, you know, Aunt Jane is coming back.
It's a miracle cure.
And it's a miracle cure. And in fact, it's just the opposite.
Right.
It's a harbinger for death.
Right.
Yeah. So those are the ones that happen before death. And then at the moment of death is the shared death experience. And I shared that already, one of those experiences.
So we have the pre-death things, and people have heard those, and then there's the experiences people have after a death.
Yes.
When someone has passed, there's a sense they're around. Can you what are some of those experiences?
So yeah, one of the more profound phenomena is what we call direct post-death communication. And that's this experience that a loved one will say, I feel like my, you know, just departed loved one is actually in my head, in a sense that they feel communication. If you ask them, is it words, is it, well, sometimes they hear words, sometimes they just have knowings. They'll say that it's like this, their departed loved one can read their mind, and they may not even know that they're, you know, thinking about a certain topic or asking a question, and they get a response and they know who it's from. This is quite profound, because this really puts this specter of death in a very different light. It's as if the person is out of sight but still with them in some type of communication. And this is a really important phenomenon because it does allow for ongoing relationshiping. Because it can be a one or two experiences. It can go on for weeks. We have people in our research that have had this conversation ongoing. What everyone has in common is, most everyone has in common, is a sense that they feel like if they talk too much about this with other people, people will look at them as if they making it up or will doubt them. So most people keep this very, very quiet.
And that's why I wanted to speak to your research, because this is being done at UCSB. I mean, this is legitimate. This isn't, you know, this is a researcher gathering data, and people are telling their stories and their experiences. And so if you want to just briefly talk about the shared crossing video, just set it up for us, and we'll listen to, we'll watch that video after you tell us the, you know, go ahead, tell us, set us up, set it up for us.
So the clip we're going to see is with Jean Denny, and she's a psychotherapist, and she's an expert in conscious dying. She works out of New Jersey. And what you're going to be seeing here is an experience where she is actually en route to, by plane to attend her father's funeral. And her father has just died the night before. This is an early morning flight. But you will see is that she is going to have what we would call a delayed shared death experience, not happening at the exact same time as her father died, but soon after. And it also is also see that she, in a sense, feels that she was pulled into this by her father, in a certain sense, to guide him. So let's see this, and then we'll.
All right, let's watch the videotape of Jean.
He was just kind of in this state of being stunned. Like, he wasn't over there yet, but he was kind of like, whoa. I mean, he didn't know. It was like a lot for him to take in these beings. So, and they kind of redressed him. That's how I saw him, as putting on this gold robe and put a crown on. I said, now I remember that. I remembered that later. And he went off with them. And I got up to go to the bathroom. You know, I was on the airplane, and I was kind of like, wow, that's weird. And I went back to my seat. You know, I'm making this up now. I went back to my seat then, and I said to myself, well, I should go with them. I mean, like, why would I just let him go? So I jumped back in. They're walking down toward, they've now reoriented him. He's walking toward this tunnel, and I get in the picture with him, and then he and I start having conversations. And this was actually my helping him die, you know, of course, this was, and I was excited for him. I said, Dad, you know, it's going to be great. You know, we're so grateful for you. I got to say a lot of things I didn't get to say when, you know, he was dying. So that was healing for me. We're so proud of you. I remember her saying, you know, he had been really concerned about his obituary. And I said, you know, we wrote a great obituary for you, and you're, you know, all of these things. So we were just sort of chatting it up and saying goodbye. And then the point came where, you know, we came to kind of the edge of this thing. And it was kind of like, I like to say kind of like a manhole, but only kind of horizontal, or maybe it was a little up. I don't really remember, but I do remember it being radiant. I do remember getting there and seeing faces that I recognized, and elation, and yeah, even now I can get choked up about that. There was a great reunion there for him, and he was so amazed and so grateful.
Well, that was really powerful, William. Is there more you want to talk about that we just saw?
Yeah, I think what I like about Jean's case is every shared death experience is unique, but Jean does highlight a few of the features that we see quite frequently in the research. One is this sense that there's a tunnel. She talks about her father moving up some sort of tunnel, and she describes it as a manhole at the top of which light is streaming through. And at the top of that tunnel, she recognizes deceased relatives, family, and loved ones. And this is also something that we've identified in our research, that we refer to this as the welcoming party. And this is really mean. You could see how moved Jean was by this, how emotional she is. To know that we as loved ones give in a certain way, if we're conscious of this, we're handing our departing loved ones off to other loved ones on the other side. And that is a great source of comfort and meaning to those of us who remain here. And that really impacts our grief.
Right, because it's not, yeah, there's not a loss, and they're not in pain, or even if they were in pain, now they're not, you know, they have this beautiful thing. So, okay, this lady is an expert in conscious dying, you are. What about the people out there that are either extremely religious and feel like, you know, Jesus is supposed to come and take them, or think that these visions are drug-induced or whatever? What do you say to the people that just don't believe any of this?
Yeah, you know, it's important to know that the way I came to this and the way my team looks at us is we very much just look at the phenomenon. We don't ascribe much in the way of, you know, a particular philosophical or theological view of things. What we do say and we do point out is these experiences are inherently meaningful, and they increase in their meaning when you can normalize them and accept them as common end-of-life experiences. And what our research has revealed is that they happen far more frequently than is being recognized, certainly in our medical situations. I mean, if you have a death in a medical environment, a hospital or end-of-life care facility that is more, you know, medicalized, they probably will have not so much not open view, but they may not support it. And our goal for our research is to get this information out so that the medical personnel knows these are legitimate experiences. They are happening, and we need to honor and affirm these experiences, because with that support, people can really reap the benefits of a sense that, you know, I don't know where my loved one is, but everything I know suggests that she's alive and well, or he's alive and well somewhere.
Well, I know every day hospice nurses, and for years, and I think one of the early books, Final Gifts, was talking about that experience. So again, I think this idea of what we don't talk about, if I don't talk about it because I think I saw my friend in a dream. I'm a medical professional. I'm certainly not going to talk about it in that environment as a professional. And I think part of the importance of the work you're doing is exactly what you're saying. You know, from Raymond Moody onward, all these people, these phenomena are happening. And I think you also offer opportunities here in our community in Santa Barbara and elsewhere for people to learn how to do these protocols and share their experiences. So can you talk to us about some of the offerings you do in our community and elsewhere so people can hear how you work with them?
Yes. So we crafted a program called the Shared Crossing Pathway. And this program is designed to prepare people for what we call a conscious, connected, and loving end-of-life experience that includes the probability, our research has indicated that a very high probability for a shared crossing experience. And we offer those in Santa Barbara, usually a few times a year, and also I teach them around the country when invited, and at different retreat facilities around the country.
You've also been very instrumental in working with other key professionals, either bringing them here to Santa Barbara or going places where people are learning about death and dying, and professionals are learning about death and dying. So I know you've brought a number of surgeons and doctors and people doing other kinds of research in to just really, I think, open death in a much broader way. So if somebody watching this, maybe somebody that's not locally, wanted to learn about your research or share a story about a phenomena or an experience they had, what would they do? How could they do that?
Yeah, well, now is really good timing because we are just finishing up our latest round of research, and what we're looking for at this point is a particular experience, which is the shared death experience, but we're looking at those experiences that take place with multiple people. Sometimes the shared death experience can be experienced by a variety of loved ones. Sometimes across the country in different physical locations, they can all be experiencing something similar around the death of a loved one. So if anybody has had any type of shared death experience of that nature, we're particularly interested in speaking with them right now.
Could you tell us a story, do you have a story that's an example of that, or that has that multiple?
Yeah, so a woman, this came from recent research, so a woman is with her father dying in, I believe it was Pennsylvania, and so she's there with her father, and she starts seeing the light in the room change, and then feels that she's being pulled out of her body, and then she sees her mother appear, who's already died, and says, "You've cared for your father well, I'll take it from here." And she's like, "Oh my God." She gets on the phone, she calls her sister who's in California, and the sister says, "I already know what happened. I saw Mom take Dad. I know he's okay." She goes, "How did you know?" She goes, "I just woke up and I just saw it." And then this happened for another sibling of theirs who happened to believe, actually it was in Texas. So this is a phenomenal experience, and we always look for evidential cases to, people want to say, "Hey, are you sure people aren't exaggerating?"
Yeah, playing a game. Or,
but when you hear these experiences and from the people we interview, you'll see that in our videos we use people that are, really credible people, salt of the earth. I mean, these people couldn't make these stories up.
Right. So if people wanted more, so your website is sharedcrossingproject.org.
Sharedcrossing.com.
Sharedcrossing.com. And, I just, in the last little bit of time, I think what you said is really important, and maybe you can talk just a tad about how this impacts people's grief. Because that is one of the hardest things, why people fear death so much, is the anticipation, like, what am I going to do when he's gone, she's gone?
Yeah.
Talk just a little about that.
So these shared crossings really place a death in a different context. I'll be clear, you know, when you lose a loved one, you're going to grieve. It's a
course.
healthy response.
Of course.
But what we find is that these experiences have a way of giving deeper context to hold the loss in. The person is gone from their life here, but somehow there's a continuing bond. Somehow there's something still in the relationship that's meaningful. The relationship evolves, and this happens because of these shared crossing experiences that touch them very deeply. Most people will describe their shared crossing experiences as more real than real. More real than this dimension we live in as human beings. And so the grief is, in a certain sense, alleviated or ameliorated by these shared crossings. And this is a big part of my mission here, is that people need to know that death doesn't have to be as painful and protracted as we have made it in our Western culture.
Right.
And there's, you know, and so, yes, there.
It doesn't, and I mean, that is essentially what we're here about, is to talk about those things we're most afraid of and start to befriend death, if you will. And to me, that assists us truly in having our loved ones die in grace and us living in grace, feeling a little bit of comfort. So again, if you'd like to invite the audience, if they have any kinds of stories, what exactly are you looking for? What would you like?
We're looking primarily for the shared death experience, and that's that experience of someone, a loved one, saying, I felt like I went into the initial stages of the afterlife with my loved one. That's what we're looking for primarily. And if people have other direct post-death communication, we're very interested in that. The other elements too, call us up, email us, let us know what your shared crossing experiences are, and someone will get back to you and we'll see if you fit.
Well, thank you so much, William, for being our guest tonight. I want to thank my crew back there, Elliot Jacobson, Michael Nicholson, SBTV. Thank you so much once again for allowing us to do Dying in Grace. And William, we have our book of Living Love. If you'd like to sign it, and you too can go to the website dyingingrace.com and offer the name of a loved one. Thanks so much for being with us.